will call this meeting to order and we'll do a roll call. So I'm here, Tony. Mark?
Here.
John? New guy. Uh-oh. You sure you signed up for this, Karen?
Pardon, who?
John Ehrlich.
He's supposed to be.
All right. Sarah Sand, not here. Neil?
I'm here.
Casper, our student rep, is not here. Roger?
Here.
Leslie?
Hi, here.
Jeff? And Bob Sherry for his second.
Here.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. He'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Newark flag from my house is that way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible.
liberty and justice.
Okay, it looks like Casper's on now.
All right, Casper, thank you for joining us. All right, public comments. Karen, I'm assuming both the people in the waiting room are here to speak about Sheridan.
I'm not sure if they're here to. Then if you could go to the attendee, let me double check. Okay. Okay. So it's just Janelle. It's okay. So are you trying to call in under the Sheridan or the other? This is Janelle.
Janelle Nordyke for Sheridan Street.
Okay, Sheridan, we'll put you on mute then and we'll bring you back up when that time comes.
Okay, thank you.
So. Okay, Tony, everybody that's in the waiting room is for Sheridan.
All right, so no public comments. We'll move on to the consent calendar.
We do not have the minutes of the last meeting ready yet, so.
Okay, we'll pass on that one then. And let's go to the staff report.
And John is not here, so unless he joined in the last minute or so. So we will not introduce a new member.
Okay.
So Sergeant Roney, do you have anything you want to present tonight as the police department? You're muted.
There you go. No, I don't have anything new to present.
We thought you'd at least show us your new badge.
I'm plain clothes today, so.
Russ, when does Public Works get their own badge? All right, nothing from police engineering, active issues log.
Okay, so gentlemen and ladies, the active issues log, there was only 5 that were actually updated since the last time you saw that log. Excuse me. So there was no parking at East 8th, I can't say that. And that has been updated. We're dealing with that as part of the Safe Routes to School program. So that has been updated to say that River Street, then 6th Street. You guys heard that at your last meeting. And that has been finalized. We're working with maintenance to get all of the signage in place. And then that will be installed here by the end of the month. Sheridan Street, you'll hear tonight. Meridian Street Crosswalk, we're waiting to hear back from George Fox University about where they think the right place to be would be. And we have not heard from them yet about having a meeting. And then North Valley and Chehalem Drive, a gentleman had complained about sight distance due to the trees. So we removed a couple of the trees and solved that problem. So that's it with the that's all the updates that we have on the active issues log. Any questions on any of it? Okay. So general information, a couple things to let you guys know is the city has acquired a software called SeeClick Fix. It's an app that people can download onto their phone. And one of the things we're going to use it for is if somebody sees a traffic safety issue, rather than sending us an email or another form, they could do it straight from their phone. They can click, take a picture, send it to us. They'll get an automatic email that says that we got it, and we'll evaluate whatever it is. We'll do the same process internally, but it's a quicker thing for them that they can just upload it, tell us what the issue is that they see, and then we will have it in place. And the other interesting thing is it ends up in a database. So we're hoping, our goal was for the active issues log is to make that a living document that could be updated easily and readily. And right now it's not. It's kind of a really cumbersome manual process. So we're hoping that with this, it's going to allow us to do that quickly and easily, to keep that up to date, and actually maybe even have it on the website so people could go and see exactly what's going on for all of these locations, and see if somebody else had already said the same thing that they had said, or what the resolution may have been at 3 years ago, or whatever the case may be. So so we're hoping that it's really going to move us forward and get us where we want to go eventually. So know that it hasn't been advertised yet, but probably towards the end of August, Lacey will put something out on Facebook or the webpage or whatever. And like I said, people will be able to download that app to their phone and do it right from their phone. So I think that's a great move forward for all of us.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Are other cities using this?
Other cities use SeeClick Fix. I'm not sure that they're using it for traffic safety concerns, but they definitely use it. It was originally done for like potholes. Someone could click on it and submit a pothole, and it would go to maintenance, and they would get the notification, or a street sign down, or those kinds of things. So I think we're the first ones to use it for traffic safety as far as I'm aware, but it seemed like it could be a good fit.
You're still going to get the pothole complaints and the.
No, those go to Russ. He gets the pothole complaints.
One other point about the SeeClick Fix is it does provide a positive response to the person that sends it in. So they get a response that it's been received, being reviewed, and as it goes through the steps and additional information is entered into it, they will get a response as to the status. So it's never stagnant on there. I do know that the city of SeaTac is using it. They were looking at traffic related issues. The city of Tukwila was using it for traffic related issues, but they've tabled it right now due to the loss of some officers, an officer in particular that was working with it. They're using it for other things. There's probably about 50 users between Oregon and Washington of the system currently.
Karin, is there a time frame that a response from staff is committed to making? You're going to get the submit, and it's a robot response that says thank you for this. But from that point to a human response,
We still try to give them a response within a week at the most, at least to tell them that we're looking at it, or we've been out there, or we still need to go out there, or hey, can you meet me out there so we can really look at together what your issue is. I know I did that with Roger several years ago when we were having some issues out in the greens. So yeah, the hope is still that within a week we're getting back to them, at least telling them that, yeah, we're looking at it, or whatever the case may be.
okay. No, Lake Oswego has an engineer that's almost 100% assigned to responding to citizen issues.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't. Right now, it's me. So
Hopefully that doesn't change. Well, hopefully you stay, but hopefully the load doesn't get so big you can't take that on. I fear that the access is going to overwhelm you, and we'll end up having to have more employees just for that response, which would be a good thing. More things are being addressed.
It would be. It would be.
One of the things with the response to is it's automatically channeled to the appropriate department. So if it's not an engineering required response, then it could be a maintenance issue. It could be a police issue. It could be some other issue that will get a response. And our target is, as Carden mentioned, 7 days.
Who tracks it if it's once it goes into the system and it splits out between police, maintenance, and engineering? Who's the ultimate tracker of that?
Lacey, our community engagement specialist, is the one that is tracking to make sure that they go to the right places and they've been responded to.
Okay, fantastic. Any other
It's
questions?
also logged into our Cartograph asset management system, and our asset manager will also be monitoring it along with Lacey.
That's amazing. Cool program.
Anything else on the C-Click fix? All right, a couple project updates. The Crestview Drive project is out to bid. Those bids are due at the end of the month. So we will be awarding that contract hopefully September 8th at the city council meeting. And so that chunk of Crestview between the city limit line and the roundabout on Springbrook will be under construction soon. So that's good news. Memorial Park sidewalks. One of the issues that we've had is the fact that, you know, we have gaps in our sidewalks, and we've talked about the council wanting us to actively address those concerns. And my take on that is one of the first things that we needed to do as a city is deal with the properties that we own that don't have sidewalks, and Memorial Park being one of them. I was shocked when I realized a couple years ago that, you know, the park didn't have sidewalks. And so that project is actually out to bid right now also. So that will be under construction this fall. That'll be about 1,000 feet of sidewalk that we'll be installing, and either installing or revising 15 curb ramps, along with the driveway on the back side of the public safety building on the Blaine Street. We'll be redoing that driveway because it doesn't meet standards either. So I think it's going to be good, and we'll have ADA parking stalls on both sides of the park, both on Blaine Street and on Howard Street. So I think that'll be a positive improvement for that location. It also leads us into the Safe Routes to School. You know, we've been working on the Safe Routes to School and all of the improvements that are needed for Edwards Elementary. And obviously the lack of sidewalks on Blaine Street is a big piece of that. So this will be constructing a big chunk of that to start to fill in those gaps to make it safe for people to get to and from the elementary school there. So those transportation projects are all moving forward. We finished up the pavement maintenance projects for this year. We did a minimal amount this year. We did some crack and slurry seal. And then we decided to hold off on doing the rest of the projects that we had designed. We were concerned with COVID and those types of things, what our revenues would be. So we thought we would hold off. And assuming the revenues come in, we will just do a larger project next summer. So we'll take the ones that we've already got designed, and we'll add some more projects, and we'll go ahead and do a larger chunk next summer, which gives us a little bit of time because as we've talked about before, we have a lot of utilities that we need to do before we pave the roads, trying to fix the sewers and that kind of stuff, so we're not digging up brand new pavement. And we've got almost $800,000 worth of sewer rehab that we're doing this winter, fall. So it'll be perfect. We'll get some of that done, and then we can come in and do the pavement on top of that next summer. So I think it'll work out good for the overall plan. So that's what I've got for projects, unless somebody has a question on a project.
Karen, I just had a question. You probably said it and I didn't hear it. Did you say you're doing the sidewalks on both sides of Memorial Park?
Yeah, Howard, Blaine, and Fifth, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, we're not gonna, and we went out and took a look. We're not gonna hit the playground, or we might hit a couple of the small shrubs right adjacent to Fifth Street, but we're not
Right.
taking out, most of that landscaping will still stay.
Okay. Good.
So,
Very nice.
any other questions on that?
Karen, 219, call it from Park to College or Park to Foothills, the sidewalk project. Is that moving forward still?
Oh, College Street, sorry. I think of it as College Street, not 219 in that location.
I
So I'm
see
always
it.
on the south end of town when you say 219, I'm like, what? The College Street, yes, actually, they've actually hired, finally signed a contract with a consultant to move forward on extending that sidewalk from Aldercrest. The original plan was up to Foothills on the west side of the road, sidewalk or bike lanes on both sides of the road. What we have figured out is money-wise, we will probably only be able to go to Quail instead of all the way up to Foothills. But it'll give us a big chunk and get a sidewalk almost all the way to the north end. But the construction's not gonna happen until, I'm not sure I've actually seen an updated construction schedule, Tony. I don't think it's gonna happen next summer. I think it'll be the summer after that is my guess, because we still have to do the design work, and then we'll have to acquire any right of way that's necessary, which takes time. So my guess, and since it's all run by ODOT, that adds additional time onto that. Hopefully nobody here is from ODOT, but that's the way that always functions. So yeah, my guess is not next summer, but the summer after that.
I bet that you're right. That would be a 22 build.
Yep, 22 build is my guess.
And then the project across the street from the hospital.
The Crestview Crossing, the private development, they are working through still trying to get their permits. They have gotten their erosion control permits and their grading permits, but they do not have permits to do, and they just got permits to do some retaining walls, but they don't have any permits to do any public improvements at this point in time. Not yet. They're getting close.
And then the last one I had was the bypass, the new route down by the south end.
Wilsonville,
Wilsonville, that's all done.
it is done. You're correct.
Is there any other improvements that are happening around there that the city has to do that's on the hook for this?
Nope. It was all ODOT. It was just a reroute of Wilsonville Road to the south end of Winooski. There is no money to build phase 2 at this point in time. They do have some money to do some still right-of-way acquisition and some preliminary engineering, but there has been no money identified yet, either at the federal level or the state level for construction, unfortunately.
Any other questions for Karen? All right, on to new business. And tonight we have a hearing for Sheridan Street. And so this is going to be a bit of a formal process that we're going to go through. We'll call hearing to order. We'll hear a staff report, and then we will go to testimony from citizens, most likely adjacent residents, and we'll start with opponents, then proponents, then neutral. And then we will have our discussion. And then if we're going to make a motion, we'll do a motion to do something. We'll figure that out. So any questions on what we're about to do? All right. Well, I will call the Sheridan Street hearing to order. And Brett, I believe you're delivering the staff report to us.
That is correct. Good evening. I'm Brett Music, Senior Engineer here at the city. And when in the agenda packet for the Traffic Safety Commission was a July 7th or July 10th memo to the Traffic Safety Commission, identified the issue that had been brought to the Public Works Engineering Division by Waste Management, particularly with their vehicles traveling down the 2-block section of roadway of East Sheridan between College and Meridian. And we went out and looked at that several times, discovered that the roadway width is 24 feet wide. So when you have parked cars on each side of the roadway, you end up with a single 10-foot wide lane for cars to travel both directions. There's minimal amount of driveways along that section, which is typically used to pull out into areas, even our 32-foot wide roads at times. If people are parked farther away, there's a need to people allow each other to pass, and using driveways does that. So next slide, please. So this is a vicinity map of the general area that we're speaking about. That'll be good. This shows the 2 blocks that we're looking at there. What we discovered is that, like I said, we have 24 feet of curb to curb width. And being out there and seeing this at different times of the year, different times of the day, there's cars parked sporadically, at times heavily along the roadway. They also park up onto the curb and into the planter strip area. There is a 60 feet of existing right of way. And so there's a very large planter strip on both sections, both sides of the street there. The yellow curb parking has recently been no parking areas at each of the intersections have been updated throughout the region there through downtown, a number of areas, including Sheridan Street. Those designate the no parking areas that are related to being 20 feet away from crosswalks at the intersections. So as we were looking through this item, looking at it in the context of what is safe for all travelers, all users of the roadway, we evaluated a series of options, recognizing the challenges with areas like this where it's an older part of town and off-site parking is limited. Roads were not built to the current, what we have as our current standards. Current standards is a 32-foot wide roadway. And so we looked at all the different scenarios and came up with what we had is 6 different options. We would go to the next slide, please. And so the first option is the do nothing. That's leaving it as it is and continuing to work through the issues. I will say that one of the conversations I had was to representatives of the fire department, and they'd recognize that they would have issues getting through a narrow street like this. What's been voiced to me in the past is they are, when they kind of need to come through an emergency situation with lights and sirens going, people will know that to get out of the way. That's an experience that they have, but they could have some delays. The next thing is to rebuild the roadway. As I mentioned, there is 60 feet of right of way, so 32 feet of curb to curb width, meeting the current standards is achievable. That would take, reduce the planter strip on each side by about 4 feet to do that. That comes at a significant cost. A real rough estimate is about $130,000, and that does not necessarily include any utility relocations or other things that would be needed. That is something that there's no funding for that currently. It could possibly be funded by a local improvement district or some other means, but we didn't really go into a lot of detail into that when we looked at that in our analysis. The third option is related to a traffic safety decision back almost 20 years ago that had looked at this previously and had at one time authorized no parking on the north side of College Street, similar to what's our north side of East Sheridan Street, similar to what's on Sheridan Street west of College going towards School Street, and then also east of Meridian going back towards to the George Fox campus. Both of those sections already are 24 feet wide as well and have no parking on the north side. So this third option is with the designation of locations of pullout refuges. There's no record that that's ever been identified as any refuges. There are these intended for no parking along the intersections, the yellow parking, as I mentioned previously, What's not there is any mid-block refuges. There's a minimal amount of driveways along that area. So that's never been identified that we've been able to document that anybody has designated a pull-out refuge option. So that is an option that's there. And we also looked at the elimination of parking on both sides of East Sheridan Street as the code shows and our for street sections is to have parking on one side of the road is a minimum of 28 feet. Typical areas with fire department access is for parking needs 26 feet of width. And again, East Sheridan Street has 24 feet of curb to curb is what we've identified. That doesn't seem practical with the limited amount of parking and the properties that do have limited to no access for off-street parking. The other option that we looked at is the elimination of parking on the south side of Sheridan Street. That didn't seem to make a lot of sense with the application of the rest of the street of East Sheridan having no parking on the north sides. And then the negative number 6 was the elimination of parking on the north side, which would be consistent with what has been done on Sheridan Street, east and west of this location. So we go on to the next slide. So this is the analysis that we walked through. Next slide. And next slide. And next slide. One more. And so after our review of this, the staff recommendation is for the Traffic Safety Commission to make a motion to make the north side of East Sheridan Street between North College and North Meridian a no parking area consistent with the other areas along the segments of East Sheridan Street between North School and North River Street. So I'll include the staff report.
Karin, correct me, do I get to ask if the committee members have questions of staff now or wait until after testimony?
Either way, you can ask both times.
Okay. So any questions of Brett from the committee?
I have one.
Go ahead, Bob.
Who is responsible to designate the refuge areas?
That was in the previous decision, that was the city engineer.
Okay. So the city could go ahead and establish them, I guess, then.
Yeah, the difficulty is establishing where those should be. Those effectively would become no parking areas wherever those were created.
Okay, thank you.
So Brett, the yellow striping that was just recently reapplied, that's not considered the refuge area. There's a different design that would be, or a different element that would be added to this to create a refuge area.
Those could be considered or could be utilized as refuge areas. They're not what I view as a refuge area. They are a no parking area, indicating the no parking area is near a crosswalk, which is the same thing done on a number of streets of varying widths, even our 32-foot wide streets.
So what would a refuge area look like?
It would be a similar, I'd expect it to be a similar type of thing. It would just, I would anticipate it being more of a mid-block element, like I mentioned a lot of times in a lot of streets, driveways are used, wider driveways especially can be used in an area where people can pull out into and use as a refuge, because there's no parking happening, shouldn't be any parking across the driveway. The challenge in this area is, especially this section of East Sheridan, there's very few driveways and many of them are narrow, other than on the south side of the 800 block.
Any other questions from the committee?
I have one question, I guess for Sergeant Ronning, and I realize this is, it probably doesn't have an answer to this, but that's okay, I'll ask. Are there any police records of crashes or anything along this stretch of Sheridan?
Yeah, I'd have to look it up, but I mean, I've been around for 20 years and I can't think of any that jump out right at me. That's not to say there hasn't been any, but nothing that I would consider a problem.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
I have a question. Has the city tried this refuge in other areas of the city?
No, we haven't.
So there's no standards as far as how much room these would take then, or how much curb area?
No, we haven't looked. A standard, parking stall is 18 to 20 feet long. So you would need a little bit more than that. So you would probably need 25 to 30 feet to make something like that work for people to get in and out.
I think a parallel stall car is 22 feet in the city, right?
I'm not sure if we actually have a specified standard. We have stuff we like to use, but I'm not sure we actually have it shall be this long.
So Tony, I don't know if this is the right time for me to interject a couple of things or ask a couple of questions, but one, I guess, Brett, when you talked to Tualatin Valley Fire Rescue, were you communicating with them with their ability to just drive through East Sheridan from point A to point B versus being able to set up operations on Sheridan if they had to fight a fire?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I had lost my Zoom connection there.
When you talked with Tualatin Valley Fire Rescue,
Yes.
was it in communication about them being able to travel from point A to point B on Sheridan versus setting up fire operations if they were fighting a fire on a residence or a structure on East Sheridan?
It was focused on traveling through.
So just really quick, I ran some numbers. So if I understand it correctly, with parking on both sides of the street, that only allows about 10-foot width of driving, correct?
Correct. When cars are parked from the curb, I'm assuming a 7-foot parking lane from each side. That's right.
Okay, so their fire apparatus, their fire pumpers are 8.3 feet wide. And I can tell you right now that if they were to lay a 5-inch hose to a hydrant, that 5-inch is not, if they were pressed up against vehicles on one side, they're not going to get water to their intake. That hose, it curves around enough that it's probably going to take up about 12 to 15 feet size. Otherwise, they're going to have a major kink in it. Their aerial, if they have to set up truck ops, their aerial needs 18 feet width to be able to put the stick up. Plus the fact that if they had it dead center, they've got about a foot on each side to open doors for firefighters to get out. And I can tell you, when you're wearing a pack and stuff, you're going to have firefighters in a vehicle that's not going to be able to get out. So I'm just kind of throwing some information out there. And I got this, they get Pierce fire apparatus. So I went to Pierce's site and got some of their specs really quick on what their apparatus uses. So right now,
Neil?
Yeah.
Let's just stick with.
If you want to go on, that's fine. That's why I was asking.
And then we can talk about after we hear testimony.
Sure, that's fine.
Do you have other questions for staff?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry not to cut you off, but we'll come back to that.
No, that's fine.
Any other questions for staff? All right. Karin, let's move to the testimony side.
Okay, hold on. Tony, do you want us to read the written testimony, or did everybody see the written testimony? Do we need to read it before we go to verbal?
I read it.
I read it.
I read it.
It looks like we're all good there then, so we can start bringing people up from the attendee list.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first one up will be Janelle. Go ahead, click on it. Just once. There you go. So Janelle?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello. I probably would choose number 2, but then that costs a lot of money, option number 2. My question is, can we allow parking on grass? I know there are several cars that do park on the grass, and in most cases that wouldn't be allowed, but because Sheridan is so narrow, that allows cars to park on both sides. I do know that there's a lot of residential and there's a lot of multiple family units in that stretch. And so there's more than just the traditional 2+ cars. So I guess I'm more recommending parking on the grass, which isn't an option, which isn't one of your options. And I'm also just really wanting to know what the results are of the decision. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Janelle. Karen, is it okay if the commission asks her any questions?
You can.
Any questions for Janelle? Okay. Hearing none. Thank you, Janelle.
You're welcome.
Karen, any other testimony?
Robert, I think you're up. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
We can hear you.
Yes, I can. Good evening. And thank you for the opportunity, especially under these challenging circumstances. I'm Robert Suppy. I live on Sheridan Street, and you guys got a fair amount of testimony from me. I will not reiterate most of that because you guys, I assume, have all read it. There's some things in the staff report I want to raise. If I heard correctly in the staff report, he talked about, and I'm sorry, I can't use names because I didn't catch who said what, talked about painting the yellow for the 20-foot legal requirement for parking. Well, as I was listening to this, I paced it off, and no, these are the refuges that were determined, and they're on the order of 35 feet or more. So it's not just the 20 feet that was there. There was the discussion, not by staff. Oh, secondly, staff mentioned that, gee, the road only allows a 10-foot travel lane. I would suggest you look at the Newburgh Development Code and see what a standard travel lane width is in residential neighborhoods. As I read it, it's 10 feet. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is there. Next, the discussion about the fire department being able to hook up to the hydrant. If you look at where the hydrant is located in this 2-block section, it's at the corner of Sheridan and Edwards. I'm standing in front of it, and there is no parking allowed on either side of the street here. So what you're talking about won't give any more access to the fire hydrant. Boy, what else was there? There was numerous other things in there. I'm concerned about what the motivation is here. It started off as an issue from waste management. A mid-block refuge doesn't help waste management at all. If you've got to travel a block and there is a narrow restriction at one end, it doesn't matter how wide open the middle of the block is. That refuge has to do with cars approaching one another, which hasn't been discussed here, so I won't get into that. But if that's really your concern, we've got a whole nother discussion to have. So just to summarize, my concern is what it sounded like you were told in the staff report isn't very accurate on a number of issues. Secondly, if this is really a waste management issue, as I said in my testimony, this is a once-a-week problem, at most a third of the day. Why in the world would you solve this with a 24/7 solution? That just doesn't make sense. The other one, the suggestion that one possibility on widening the street is a local improvement district. Let me just say, I think I'm not a betting man, but I would bet and give you odds that we would have no trouble coming up with 60% objection to a local improvement district. So don't begin to think that that's a solution for how to fund this. Anything else? No, you've got my testimony. If you got any questions about it, I'm more than welcome to answer it. I do think it's important for you to ask yourself, did you have the information about visually how this was going to result in restrictions on parking? Did you have the numbers on how many spaces you were going to eliminate by these different decisions? And if you didn't have those numbers, why not? But I want you to think carefully about the folks, about where they live and where they will have to park. And for some folks, it's going to be a huge burden if you start taking parking away. And not just a burden here. That parking, these streets get filled when it's daytime and George Fox is in session. These streets are filled. If you take away any parking, that's going to push the parking further north, and then it's going to become their problem. So think carefully about the burden you're going to impose on folks. Anyway, you've got my testimony, you got my comments. If you got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, but I do trust that you'll make a informed and intelligent decision.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions for Robert?
Yeah, I have a question. Robert, you mentioned in your report that Waste Management only picks up garbage from 2 individual houses, and that's it?
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't quite hear you.
You mentioned in your report that Waste Management only picks up garbage from 2 different houses.
I'm sorry, and I may not have been clear. I was speaking specifically on the block between College and Edwards.
Okay.
I live on the north side. My trash goes on College Street. Next door neighbor puts her trash on Edwards because that's the convenient spot. On the south side, the house on the east side puts their trash on Edwards. The house on the west side has their trash out on College. So there are only 2 houses in the middle. Now I want to be really, really clear about my suggestion there. I only think that makes sense if both residences think it's a good idea for them. I think it should be entirely their decision. But yes, on my block, there's only 2 houses that put their trash out on Sheridan Street. I don't know about the block to the east.
Okay. I was just wondering where everybody else put their garbage. So but you answered the question.
Well, I mean, I told you that. Part of this is, the north side of the block is entirely 2 houses, and we don't put things on Sheridan. And yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Robert, thank you for your very thoughtful testimony, written and tonight. Greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. You should expect that of me.
Lauren, any other testimony tonight?
Yes, Michael, can you hear us? We've asked you to unmute.
Yes, I think I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had written a letter, but I didn't know where the concern was coming from. It sounds like it's Waste Management. And I noticed that Waste Management drives down this road even on days we don't have garbage. So it made me think that they feel pretty comfortable driving down this road. And they're not going slow. So I'm surprised that Waste Management is saying that. If this is just a Waste Management issue, I'm okay rolling my garbage can to Edwards, so they can pick it up. But it seems like 13 years ago, this was brought up about not having parking and on one side, and the city said it would be better to not have parking on the north side because there's more spaces, or on the south side because there's more spaces on the north side. It just seems like we're getting rid of a lot of parking for folks in the neighborhood to take parking away on one side. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying of the consistency going down the road, but I think part of the reason I'm one of the houses where people park up on my yard, there's the previous owners had put in pavers that come out about 18 inches. And part of the reason people do it is because the curb is about 2 inches high here, maybe 3, so it's not a huge deal. But and I just kind of, mow the yard around it. But it seems like with these new yellow areas that they've painted up, that does create a spot if people need to pull over. Sometimes people pull into my driveway to let somebody go by. For the most part, there's, sometimes people are crossing over from east of College Street. There's a deal up there now where they're only supposed to turn right kind of between the heavy traffic hours, but that doesn't always happen. I think that's all. I mean, other than what I wrote in the letter. So.
Excellent. Any questions for Michael?
No.
Michael, thank you very much both for your letter and your testimony tonight.
I will say I spent, I don't know, 20 or 30 grand widening the driveway and creating parking in my yard so that otherwise I'd probably have 3 cars out on the street. So it's nice to have off-street parking, but not everybody has that option in this area. They don't have driveways. So.
Thank you. All right, Karin, is there any other testimony?
We have one more, Nancy. Nancy, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Nancy Laughlin, and my brother and my sister and my mother and I own the 3 commercial buildings on the corner of Meridian and Sheridan. The numbers are 207, 211, and 215 North Meridian. And our tenants use the parking lot that we provide, but they also rely on the on-street parking on Sheridan Street. So this would be a hardship for our tenants and the value of our property. So elimination of parking on either side would be detrimental, but we would approve of options 1 or 2. We would oppose opposition or options 3, 4, 5, and 6. However, if there's some sort of compromise, for instance, since our buildings are commercial rather than residential, perhaps they could be used by the community after business hours. And then during the business hours, the peak hours of street parking could be used. We put our garbage cans out on Meridian. So I have no idea what Waste Management is doing there. We also have some busy times that we need off-street parking for our tenants because we have a daycare there. And so there's an early morning drop-off and a mid-afternoon, late afternoon pickup. But that is usually, I believe, on Meridian. But again, it happens all kind of in one big wave. And so I think they use the Sheridan parking as well. So that is our input. And as owners, our names are the Minthorn Family Trust.
Any questions for Nancy? All right, Nancy, thank you very much for your testimony. And we did receive your written testimony as well. I think it was, I don't know if that was you or one of your
It's my
siblings.
brother.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Karen, any other testimony tonight?
We don't have anybody else on the list.
All right. Then we will close the public testimony portion of the hearing and enter into our deliberation and considering the staff report. So let's go back to staff and see if there's anything staff would like to follow up with. Brett?
Yeah, I just want to voice that the focus of the staff report was on not on the parking elements per se, but really the safety of the traveling public through there. And the 10-foot travel way that is in the code, that what was being indicated in the staff report, in the written staff report, what I tried to allude to this evening, maybe now I've not made that very clear, is that 10 feet on East Sheridan with the parking is for people traveling both directions. So that's where the refuge is, need to happen in order to be able to make that somebody could pull over if parking is consistent to let the other people through. So just want to add that clarification.
All right, who would like to start? Neil, I know I cut you off when you're talking safety and the fire department aspect, and you bring a unique perspective to that.
Oh, no, I don't think you cut me off at all. It just occurred to me looking at the pictures that were in the documentation and everything, and just kind of looking at that type of thing. It seems that this is one of those things where we are running into the same problem of working with old infrastructure and new kind of technology. The cars are a lot bigger today than they were 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And, you know, we've talked about this all over town. So I just wanted to kind of give the information out there. It sounds like Brett did probably a pretty good job of kind of covering it. I don't know that we've got a major issue. I mean, I can answer questions. I don't have everything down pat, but I just threw out some real quick numbers. So just throwing it out there for discussion.
I guess, could I just respond to Neil's comment? I was looking through at our packet again, and it looks like on page 2, the picture there on the bottom left that shows the fire hydrant there that Robert was talking about. You can see the yellow curb in front of it. So thanks for bringing up those considerations for the fire truck, Neil. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And I don't want to interrupt Robert Soapy and stuff, but I don't think it would be taking the hydrant wouldn't be the consideration. It's just that what we use or what fire departments use now for the supply hose is 5-inch, which means it has a gallon of water every foot, and it's 100 feet long. So once you lay it and you fill it, you don't move it. And it automatically, when you put it in the engine, it stretches out about 5 or 6 feet. So that was my concern, was that they would have a hose that they're not able to connect to the engine to be able to get water if they're doing a structure fire, because they basically are landlocked on both sides of the apparatus. This isn't the only street in town where that problem occurs, though. But again, now we've got, it would be if it was really busy, and I've been on that street numerous times, where you feel like you're threading the needle because there are cars on both sides. So I'm just putting it out there for discussion. Thanks, Tony.
Hypothetically, I know when I'm designing subdivisions that we're told that the fire truck the hose can reach 150 feet from the truck, and you have to make sure you can get touched around the backside of a house from 150 feet away from a truck. Is that
that's pretty
standard?
We in Lake Oswego, we have 200-foot cross sections now. We've gone to 200 feet because we've ran up too many times where we just can't get where we need to, and we have to extend. It just takes a little bit longer to extend. So I think with you're seeing larger structures, and every time you have to make a corner and type of inside a structure, it takes up hose. I mean, I can go into a whole lecture here tonight on hose dynamics and laminar flow and things like that. But it's again, that old infrastructure versus the newer demands of how things are. And, you know, my great grandfather's truck had nothing on a Ford F-350 of today.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I have a couple of comments on the staff report. On page 5, with the address of 717 East Sheridan Street, that particular lot, that property, actually has off-site or on-site parking. So there's a correction that should be made in the report. There's a single car garage there and a driveway next to it where actually 4 cars can park. There weren't any parked there today, but it's clear that, you know, that they're there. And I think that's just a single family house that's there. And my other comment was on the property across the street from there, directly across the street at 801 Sheridan. That property appears to have 3 tenants in it. It's not a single family house. And it may be a zoning violation that we need to follow up on, because I don't meet the requirements to be an apartment complex. The reason I know that there are 3 tenants there because there's 3 mailboxes out front. And they had a number of cars parked around them today. So, but you know, to me, it seems to be the bigger problem of the students and the adjacent commercial and retail uses. They're needing to park there to satisfy, you know, their needs. Because when you look at the 2-block area in total, there's only 1 lot there that doesn't have any parking on their property. Everybody else does. And as we heard in the testimony, that place fills up every day because of the students and the adjacent uses. And my question is, does the city have any obligation to provide that parking for the students and for the commercial uses? Does anybody know?
There is no requirement that the city provide parking. Normally that's a function of the private development or the homes themselves. Now, the flip side of that is on most residential streets, we do allow for parking on the street. That's one of the functions or utilizations of the public street is parking also. So, you know, there's a dual purpose there.
And for the college, what about that? I understand the residential end of it, but you know the problem is more likely the college students, because you know I've been to college, we all have, and when you're around a college, you have a hell of a time finding a place to park, and that's what you've got here. So I'm just curious if there is a written obligation anywhere, or if it's just something you have to tough out.
There is no written obligation for the city to provide parking for the college.
Okay, got it.
All right, I'm going to start at the top of my screen and just go through one by one. And Roger, any questions or comments, thoughts?
Just a question, why was there no parking on the streets adjacent to this area? I think on both ends, there's no parking available. And just, what was the reasoning for that being put into place?
Can we go back to the guy that's probably been here longer than any of us and ask Russ, because he probably did it?
If you're talking about the no parking on the intersection corners, that's done as a vision clearance issue as well. Part of the state laws that we have, and it can be found in the driver's manual, is 20 feet of no parking from any crosswalk, whether marked or unmarked. And actually in the state laws, it says 30 feet if they're unmarked, that there shall be no parking. So it's most of those areas, and especially in high pedestrian areas such as this near the college, it was determined ages ago to mark those areas as no parking on the intersections in the corner.
Actually, my question is, there are streets adjacent to this section we're looking at, these two streets we're looking at on either end, and there's no parking on those streets on one side. I was wondering, again, why was that designated that way?
That, I couldn't answer that. That's been no parking for about as long as I've been here, which is a long time. I do know that the areas around George Fox, when George Fox acquired a lot of the properties on the north side of Sheridan Street from Meridian eastward, that enabled them to have traffic, they brought forward the request to have that designated as no parking in that section.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Roger. Mark?
The only question I have is, one of the options that no one seems to like is redesigning the road, and part of that was financing. Is there no chance of any financing ever happening, or could financing happen in 5 years, 10 years?
Karin, Mark's asking the $1 million question.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going to find the unicorn?
I thought Brett was going to answer that question. This is his staff report.
Well, either one of us can.
Well,
There's the
there's
transportation fee,
zero
which
or very little chance.
Yeah.
Very little chance.
there's very little outside of an improvement district. The only thing that would be available, and given the current financial status of Oregon and the world in things like this, gas tax revenues and other issues, it's not looking well for a future pot of gold to be able to do this.
Yeah, and this is a local street, so we would not be able to use SDC monies on it. So it would strictly be gas tax that we would have to use if we were going to do anything.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. Anything else?
Nope, that was my question. Thanks.
All right, Bob?
How wide is the planting area?
From my magic of Google Earth, it appears to be 12 feet-ish from the face of sidewalk to the curb.
Okay.
That jive with what you saw, Brett?
That's approximately it, yes.
So another option could be on the north side of it to widen that 7 feet, for example, and park cars there, and widen your drive lane to what, 17 feet, I guess it would be.
That would be one option for a reconfiguration.
Yeah, and more economical.
That would have to be looked at in closer detail to see what the impacts would be.
Okay.
The farther you move out into the planter strip, the greater chance of running into utilities would need to be relocated and drainage issues to resolve.
Yeah, I understand. That's all I got.
Go ahead, Bob. Is that all you had, Bob? Good. Leslie, do you or your cat have any questions?
I don't think, I don't really have a question. I guess it just really sounds like this is primarily a waste management issue. This was not brought by any of the neighbors or concerns from, the business owners nearby. I know George Fox and parking in the area has been a long conversation that the city has been having, but this was not brought by George Fox. So just really clarifying that this is waste management asking for us to look at it.
Neil, anything else?
No, I think everybody did a good job of kind of recapping it. I think it's those who've been on this commission for a while. This isn't the first time we've tackled this type of issue, and I don't think it's going to be the last. I don't know what the answer is. It's one of those where it seems like we just kind of keep on pounding our head against certain place in the wall, and we never really get to a point where we can make progress. So I wish I had more of an answer, but I don't.
I will tell you my perspective is I'm looking at 3-4 different elements. One is parking is invaluable in the city, especially in the older neighborhoods like this where there's really no alternative. And the testimony from the owner at the corner of Hancock and College, I mean, she's a mile and a half away, it seems like, from Sheridan Street, but that's her only parking because there's no parking on 99W. There's no parking on College. So, I mean, that's a heck of a hump for them to have to get to their house. Anytime ODOT took their garage away back when they built the widen the highway. I also look at it from the fire response and to the homes that are in the middle of the block, on either block, thinking through what I'm told is from an engineering standpoint and the design standpoint, the fire truck has to be within 150, maybe now 200 feet of the structure to get around to the back side of the structure to battle any fire. So if we continue to allow parking on both sides and a fire truck can't get through and definitely won't be able to pass each other, if one truck parks there, it's blocked the road off for all other trucks to get around. Is it a safety thing for those owners? And can those homes be adequately protected by TVF&R? I don't think we have that answer from staff or from TVF&R and them weighing in. That's a really big concern of mine. The third, to build this road out doesn't make sense. It's a local road. 10-foot travel lane is correct for a design standard, but that's assuming there's two 10-foot travel lanes side by side. This is one 10-foot through road. I don't know. I don't know if there's a clear-cut answer here, and it sounds like there's more questions raised tonight by us that perhaps we delay a decision, recommend table it, ask staff for some more information, feedback from TVF&R. Is there a potential to post this for no through trucks to keep waste management off that road except for the days when they're picking up trash? And maybe there's an option to have staff look and lay out what this 20-year-old decision that was never really implemented looks like with the pullouts and what that would look like and what the impacts of that would be.
Can I interject, Tony?
Sure.
So I was kind of getting from the testimony that there really isn't that much garbage pickup of cans on Sheridan. Is that correct, Brett?
there is a minimum number of residences. I mean, there's 11 residences, I think, total between both two blocks there. So yeah, there's a minimum number of cans that are out on that.
And some of those cans are on College or adjoining streets anyway. So I mean, the number just keeps on dwindling down.
It's mid-zone.
So it sounds like that was the impetus for this to start, was from Waste Management having to drive down that street. So if we take it to where they don't have to pick up anything on that street, it sounds like we've possibly eliminated that part of the problem. But like Tony says, we've kind of identified other things along the way just by all of a sudden, seeing this and realizing like, whoa, there is something here to go. So I'm wondering if that's what we do, is kind of take it in bites. Obviously there's no concern from the citizens who live on Sheridan. They haven't been knocking on our door saying, hey, we have no parking. There's always the College situation with students parking on side streets during college time, and we tackle that pretty much almost every meeting we meet. So I'm wondering if that might be the way to go with this, Tony, is to just tackle making it so that the Waste Management doesn't have any pickups on Sheridan. They all go to adjoining streets and they don't have to drive down Sheridan at all.
Is that fair to the owners that are mid-block that would have to now schlep their garbage cans 100 feet down the road?
Yeah, I can't answer that. And it would be one, we would have to ask them what would be their preference, possibly lose parking in front of their residence or walking 100 feet, whatever it is, to move their garbage can, or if Waste Management would extend their service to, they put it in front of their house and they walk, Waste Management goes and retrieves it and takes it to the truck. I'm just throwing out ideas. But if their concern is not being able to drive down that street, that would eliminate that. And we kind of, are able to at least check a box saying, hey, we moved in the right direction here. There's still a whole, like we've talked about before, working with old infrastructure, streets were not designed for the vehicles sizes of today.
So
I'm not ready to make an emotion. I'm just putting it out there for discussion.
You read my mind, Neil. I was going to ask, is there a motion for tonight? Staff's recommendation in their staff report was, Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, is to go to restricting parking on the north side to match the east and west blocks of Sheridan Street.
That's correct.
That doesn't have to necessarily be our motion if there's another concept, or if there's more information that we think we want to get after hearing testimony tonight and our deliberation. Roger?
Another question I'd like to see, can staff take a look at that idea of those refuge areas, and how many parking spots would that eliminate if they were to provide some kind of a adequate passings areas or refuge areas or whatever those are considered, as was suggested a few years ago?
Karin, I'm going to punt this one to you. With us being the city engineers, the one has been designated to make those locations there. Can we do that and take a look at that? Would you authorize us to do so?
We can certainly take a look. I'm not sure that I'm willing for us to make that ultimate call, but we can look at what some options may be and bring it back to the commission.
Okay.
Is there any other thoughts from the commission?
Yeah,
I have a thought. Why don't we approach Waste Management and see if they can do an early pickup of their garbage and post the north side that on whatever day they're going to pick up their garbage, there'll be no parking there before, say, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Does that happen anywhere else in the city that you guys are aware of, Brett or Karin or Russ?
No, not that I'm aware of. And one thing that just came to mind is we're talking about this. I think we'll would need to go to Waste Management. There's some options of any of these kind of things to see what their operations are and how that relates to truck routes and things like that. That's something that did not come up in the earlier conversations, but the discussion tonight seems like it would have an impact on their operations outside of just this street.
Yeah, just a comment on the trash cans. I think, Neil, I really appreciate your creative thinking, but I don't want to ask the residents to, change their behavior. I prefer the idea of at least pursuing asking Waste Management, can they change their route or their time, rather than asking residents to walk out and around the corner with their bins.
Yeah.
So without putting words in folks' mouths, but it sounds like we're leaning towards potentially a motion to table the discussion tonight or hold the hearing over for a month for the next meeting and ask staff to come back with some additional information from TVFNR and what these bull bouts, these 20-year-old bull bout decision would look like.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Before a second on that, can I ask Karin a question? Is it, if we were to table this, will the notifications go out just like they did about the public hearing that we're continuing this, so people would know that next month we're going to continue this public hearing? If that's the route Tony wants to go.
Normally we wouldn't, but we certainly could, because we would probably be coming back with additional information. So we would want them to have whatever that information is. Normally we would just say it would be whoever was here tonight heard that we got tabled and they would know it was coming back for a date certain. But in this case, because we would have some additional information, we would send a notice out.
Okay, thank you. So if I understand right, Leslie made the motion that we table till next month, and I would add to that, if it's okay with Leslie, that we do redo notifications to those we notified about this public hearing so that they're involved in the public hearing next month also and able to give additional testimony if they feel needed, or at least are aware of additional information that we're considering before we make a decision, if that's okay with Leslie.
Yep, I agree.
Point of clarification, your next meeting's not scheduled till October. So just
2 months.
unless you want to have a meeting next month, which we may not have enough time to do all of this in that time frame.
That's what I was going to ask.
So
2 months sounds fine.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I just was wanting to be careful because the motion was next month. I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, old habits die hard.
Okay, so let's see. Let's clarify the motion here. So we are going to table this decision until our regular scheduled meeting in October. We are going to hear back from the city about options for a parking refuge, more feedback from Waste Management. We are asking the city to recontact the same list of addressees that you already contacted. Was there anything else?
And TVFNR.
The fire department.
Thank you, and TVFNR. Okay, there's my motion.
Very well stated.
Good job, Leslie.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Neil. Casper, I apologize. I didn't call on you on the go around. I'm going to call on you now. Do you have any questions or clarifications on the motion?
No, I do not. I think you guys did a really great job going over everything and bringing up new points of discussion.
Thank you. I sincerely apologize. I didn't see your face on here, so I completely missed you on my screen.
That's all right.
Any other conversation on the motion and the seconds? Hearing none, by show of hands, all in favor of Leslie's motion, raise your hand.
My hand is raised.
Fantastic. It looks like we have a unanimous decision. to hold the hearing over to our October meeting. Brett, thank you very much for your research and looking into this question.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next piece of business for us tonight. I think we have one last element. A speed zone on Springbrook Road is new business.
So we did get a request in just recently about why the speed zone on Springbrook Road, North Springbrook Road from Safeway basically north goes to 35 miles an hour. Shouldn't it stay at 25 miles an hour? Obviously, Springbrook Road is a collector street. There are very few, if any, driveways on it, although there will be a new one. There is an apartment complex going to be going in behind Safeway. So there will be one driveway onto Springbrook for that apartment complex. So the request came in, could we lower the speed limit? I told them that we as a city don't have the ability to do that, especially on collector streets. That is a function of ODOT. Now ODOT does have some new criteria that they are allowing to be used. Rather, in the past, if we've had these conversations, it's always been they base it based on the 85th percentile speed of what people are actually driving the street on. They figure that most people drive the street in what they consider a safe fashion, so that's what they base it on. They have modified their regulations to allow for us to do a speed study and propose a speed limit of where 50% of the drivers are driving, which can help in this location. My concern with this location is if we find that people are driving faster than 35 miles an hour, and it is a pretty straight stretch of street and pretty, it's got the center turn lane and those types of things, that we could end up with, once we do the speed study, they do the speed study, ODOT could come in and say, we would recommend it go higher. Now we can object to that, but it's also a 9-month process at least to get through ODOT generally. So I'm looking for, I don't need a motion necessarily, but a head nod. Yeah, we should try it, or let's sit on it for a little while. They have been really backed up, I will say that. I know several other jurisdictions have made requests. And the other challenge right now is, as you're doing speed zone studies and speed studies, there are less people on the road now through COVID than there were. Although the speeds on, or the volumes on the freeway are back up to 80% of normal. So, which is good for our gas taxes, but not so good for everything else. So I was just trying to get an idea from this group. Should we go ahead and do some speed studies and see what it comes out at? Should we make the request for ODOT? The cost would be, having someone come out and do the speed study itself. There's not a cost for us to make an application to ODOT. So just kind of trying to get an idea of where this group, what they think about.
Can I recommend that maybe the first thing we do is do a traffic accident survey to see, like, the last 5 years, how many traffic accidents have been in that stretch? That might lead us to think whether or not we need to go with a speed study.
We can do that.
If that's okay with the rest of the commission.
Yeah. How far up Springbrook are we talking? Like up to Mountain View?
Yeah, the person who made the request said basically all the way from Hayworth north to Mountain View.
Because there's already a school zone in there.
For a small portion of it.
With a crosswalk, so it kind of slows where that apartment building going. Isn't it already 25 by the time you get down there?
No, it goes from 25 to 35 and then to the school zone 20 and then back up again. So it kind of goes up and down.
And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, that area, that stretch gets a lot of the ADEC commuter traffic there are employees that come from Tigard and, you know, that direction. And it's going to, even though I know once the Springbrook connection happens, the Providence, they're going to try to route those people there, even if after they do that, after they'll be coming on at the turnabout, right?
Correct.
So, you know, it's going to be even more of a collector when that happens, because, you know, I think other people other than the Ada commuters are going to discover that that's a way to get to
Tony's house.
Yeah, get to Tony's house without having to go downtown.
It's going to definitely shave probably about 5 minutes off my commute when that
So my
new bypass is.
So my sort of inclination is that my personal observation, mostly because, you know, I work at 8X. I live here in town, so it's not my commute anymore, but it was for a good 10 years, is it's going to be kind of futile and frustrating for the commuters, you know, their last little stretch there, if you try to slow them down to 25 and, you know, their boss is looking at the watch and they're 5 minutes late for work. Anyway, my general feeling is I feel like the speed limits are sort of appropriate there on that road right now. So, you know, my gut is like doing a whole speed study and all that's going to be a big waste of time and money. That's just my gut reaction. Unless we ask, you know, if it doesn't cost anything to run the numbers to see how many accidents or tickets or whatever happen, I'm fine with that. You know, see if we can go, oh, wow, there are lots of accidents there. But my impression is we're solving a problem we really don't have.
We can certainly do that. We can work with the police department and get those numbers and bring it back to the group and see what they want to do again in October.
Okay.
Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, can you put the speed monitoring devices along there and see what the speeds are currently?
The only devices that we have currently are with the police department. We have the speed trailers, and they can put those out and get those numbers.
So that would put
that
one
has
of
to be
those
a
out.
request to the police department to make that happen.
Okay. But that could possibly give us a sample of what currently we're experiencing in that area.
We could go ahead and ask them to put those out there and get that information and any traffic, if there are any crashes out there, and bring that back.
Thank you.
Thank you for using the word crash, Karin.
You're welcome.
You don't use the word accident anymore because they are avoidable. Accidents are avoidable. Accidents are not avoidable. Crashes are.
So is the Traffic Safety Commission requesting the police department put those trailers out?
I think it'd be good data to have, especially when when Crestview Crossing goes through, and just to have a data point to compare and see what the volumes are doing and what the speeds are doing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question in relation to the speed trailers.
Go ahead.
What exact sections are you looking for speed at, or in between? Because I can do a survey on, you know, several sections of it with the trailers with what we have. And I'm assuming from ADEC down to the roundabout. That's what we're looking at.
Oh, I thought it was from like Victoria to the roundabout, or Aquarius to the roundabout, that area.
Okay, or Victoria or Aquarius. That's fine. Just trying to get an idea of where to place those. I can put them in several places,
But if we can do that for free, Karin, I think it's a good data point to have. But I would be hesitant to spend any money doing a speed study because the entire dynamic of Springbrook is going to change when Crestview Crossing and that new extension, the Providence Signal, goes in.
Right. I agree with you, Tony.
And with that, what Karin brings up about how the driving is down with COVID. Yeah, I think we're gonna get a snapshot of a picture that we may not ever see again.
That's true.
So I think we table this one for now, Karin. it'd be good to have the data of what the speeds are. So, I mean, people are speeding a little bit more because there's less cars on the road, but
Okay.
I still think I wouldn't go too much of an effort right now.
Yeah, and just so you know, is we have done an inventory of our speed signs and our speed zones throughout the city. And we don't need to advertise this, but you know, some of our signs don't match what our speed zone orders are supposed to be. So we will need to fix that at some date in the future. But right now we're just letting it ride, I guess.
Karin, I know when we were doing the traffic study, the transportation development fee, or whatever we call that fee, we flagged that the truck route on Springbrook wasn't current as well. It was supposed to go up and turn down Crestview and then to ADEC and up, but in reality, it continues up to Mountain View. I don't know if that'd be when this whole thing is redone. Maybe that's something that's brought up to.
Yeah, we can certainly look at it.
Good. All right. So there's no motion for that tonight. It doesn't sound like. I think I heard from Karin.
Nope, no need.
All right. So that takes care of new business, old business. Worst signal list. How's everybody doing coming up with their favorite intersections? It's I guess it's not the worst signal list, Karin. It's the worst intersection list.
You're the one that came up with the title.
I know. I screwed that up. Worst intersections. Everybody thinking that through? Go ahead, Leslie.
As a pedestrian and a cyclist, this is actually the reason I joined Traffic Safety Commission many, many years ago. Some of the downtown intersections, even at 6:15 in the morning when I'm going to work, let's see, I go up Meridian. So both the signals there on the eastbound 99 and the westbound, and I know this is ODOT, but especially there, you know, I'm on my bike, there's no cars there anywhere. I'll hit the pedestrian button and I wait and wait and wait. And especially on the westbound 99 on Hancock, yeah, it just does not seem responsive to the pedestrian button at all, which is very frustrating at 6 a.m. when nobody's commuting out of Portland. The other downtown intersection is, again, on Hancock and Howard, right there at the library. Again, same issue. Karin, I see you rolling your eyes.
No. Someone giving me a note, and she was asking me a question. I'm like, no, I'm good. No, it wasn't.
Okay. Feel free to agree with me.
No. I just had somebody else talking on the backside.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And then my third intersection is at 219 and Everest. Particularly as a cross, when you're on Everest, either direction, you know, I've been in a line of cars going either way to try and get through. That's still a very, very difficult and dangerous intersection. So those are my three.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Isn't there a recent change in the Oregon law about bicyclists and not having to stop at stop signs or something if there wasn't any traffic? Or I don't remember all the details about that, but isn't there a recent change in that?
I can look that up. There was something, but I don't remember what the parameters or criteria was. So I can look that up and bring that back to the group as an educational piece of it.
Well, Sergeant Ronning, it's off the top of his head. I'm sure he's arrested a lot of bicyclists for violating that stop sign.
And no, I'm not familiar with the exact wording of what the changes were as far as a bicycle going through a stop sign if there's no traffic. So
If I recall, it was just they didn't have to come to a complete stop if they're like doing the right turn thing. That was my recollection.
I will double check. And Leslie, I will actually, those signals, if they're not responding to the PED, I will send a thing to ODOT to ask them to check all those out.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else with an intersection that they flagged to have a conversation and add to a list?
It's no dot issue, but Villa and 219 right there at Walgreens and stuff. When you're heading south on Villa and you got to turn left or right, turning left, I mean, you got those 2 lanes of traffic that are turning right, heading north to go up to 99W, and not everybody uses their turning indicator. And you kind of venture out, and then all of a sudden someone decides that they're going straight. It's probably one of the worst designs for an intersection that I can even possibly imagine. I don't understand that one very well at all. And Spring Brick and 99, I usually travel that heading south on Spring Brick to catch 99W heading out of town eastbound. And I don't understand the logic of the how they have traffic move through that, because we could be backed up in left turn lanes, 2 left turn lanes backed up 8-9 cars back, and there'll be 1 car going straight, and it'll remain green for them for an inordinate amount of time. So those are the only 2 that I can think of right off the top of my head.
And on the other end of Villa, my nemesis, and I've brought this up before, is when you're coming northbound on the end of Villa onto Mountain View and you're trying to turn left to our neighborhood, Tony. The visibility is terrible. I mean, you have to basically creep out across the crosswalk to make sure there's no cars coming to make a left turn onto Mountain View.
Not so secretly, that's why I want this list published. I want that intersection fixed.
Right. And then, my other one is also coming from north down to College, trying to get to First Street, navigate across and all that. I look at my watch because I know if it's close to rush hour. I know we really don't have a rush hour in Newburgh, but I've been stuck at that intersection like 2 blocks. Takes about 3 cycles of a light, and I'm 3 blocks back trying to get through that intersection.
Southbound, Mark?
Yeah, southbound on College going into downtown. So what I'm trying to do usually is get down to where First so I can turn left and then go down to 219 south of town. But if I'm doing it, the wrong time of day, it's a
I
nightmare.
heard you can turn left on Sheridan and go down Sheridan to Meridian.
Excellent idea. In my big truck.
I'm kidding. All right, Bob, any intersections you flagged?
No, I've been busy with some other items, and but I'll have them next time.
I'll tell you that my one of my pet peeves, one is the intersection of Illinois and 219, and that trifecta of options that people have, using Deskin Street, using Illinois to get to College. That's not so bad. It's just potentially confusing or way too many options. But the other side of that Illinois 240 in Maine is really an oddball. And I'm sure we've had a lot of crashes there from people making bad decisions of trying to shoot smaller gaps than they should be.
So I will ask this group, so both Mountain View and that intersection at Illinois and Maine have come up. And right now, Illinois and Maine is in the 5-year plan to at least do an evaluation to figure out what the right intersection treatment is for that location. But we have also had people that say Mountain View is more important. So maybe I'll let you guys think about that. And when we come back at our next meeting, you guys can give me an informal poll about which one you think is more important for us to address, is Illinois and Maine or Mountain View.
And Mountain View at what intersection?
Well, it would be Villa to the east, so it would be adding bike lanes and sidewalks.
Got it. Okay. The dip.
And fixing the site distance that Mark brought up
Okay.
at the same time.
Karin, I'm sure from a volume standpoint, 240 has a lot more traffic. 240 Illinois, Maine. From a cost standpoint, is there a cheaper fix to increase the site distance at North Valley at Mountain View and Villa?
Part of your fixes would have to be taking down people's fences, and then you also have the dip is part of your problem. And the only way you're going to fix the dip is to raise the road, and which obviously is not a cheap option. So we might be able to do, like I said, if we took out people's backyard fences, which has an issue with your site distance there. There's a couple of trees that we could take out that might help, but I'm not sure we're going to get as much there without doing something significant.
So a couple of questions. Isn't that supposed to go through all the way up to like Aspen or something like that at some point, Villa Road?
Yeah, Villa Road right now is supposed to, yes, go all the way.
When they punch that through, are they going to make that a four-way stop then? Or is it going to be just two-way stop?
Eventually, actually, there's supposed to be a signal there.
Oh, really? Okay. And then I guess the other question is where does the county start there? I'm sorry, what?
That's a long way down the road.
Yeah,
So-
I understand. Where does the county start there? Aren't we right on the cusp of being in county out there?
It's actually further to the north. It's probably closer to Foothills, that far north. All of that stuff right on the north side of Mountain View is all within the city limits because it's all part of the Springbrook Properties master plan area.
Okay.
So it's further north before you hit the county again.
All right. Thank you.
Casper, I'm not going to miss you this time. Any intersections that you've seen that you think could use an enhancement?
I've talked with my family, and my family's talked with a few other people. From what I've heard, the one that came up the most was South Everest and East First Street. So coming from all the housing districts south of East First Street, seems like South Everest is the most common point to exit and enter all the houses there, and for pedestrians to try to cross to the northern side of Newburgh. But from what I've heard is that a lot of people don't feel safe crossing even with a crosswalk there already, and that maybe a stoplight would be needed or something else. My mom runs there and she doesn't feel great about it, and then has friends with kids that won't let their kids go out alone on their bikes just because of the crossing.
Yeah, that's an intersection we get a lot of comments about. And I was going to, this group knew the last time we had that ODOT ran counts did not meet warrants yet for a signal there. I was going to ask them to run counts again, but again, because of COVID, I didn't want them to do that because I was afraid they wouldn't meet counts or meet warrants because the traffic was so low. So I'm holding off to make that request for them to do that again. But I'm hoping to be able to do that maybe after the first of the year now. It's kind of my thought process, just not knowing where we are with the pandemic. But if we can get most of our traffic back going again, not that we all want traffic going, but if we can get most of the vehicles going in and out of there again, hopefully we can meet warrants and ODOT will come in and build that signal, which will solve several of these problems. That one, the one Neil brought up with a Villa in 219, all of that stuff kind of has to go together when they look at that. So it would be nice to get that all taken care of. And on ODOT's dime.
Even better.
That sounds great.
All right. Thank you, Casper. I agree with that intersection too. In my top 3. All right. thank you for that. Continue thinking about that through October, and maybe in October we can have a conversation about ranking them and helping Karen with any other questions she has on them, or more questions we might have for her. Road safety training. This is the Moji Takaloo training. Is that still an option?
It's, I have not heard from Moji lately, so I need to reach back out. I'm not sure if UP is going back to school online or in person. So
It's online.
Is it online?
Yeah, I'm an alumni, and I got something that they're going to be online in the fall.
Okay. So I will talk with Moji and see what his availability is, and we'll go from there. And whether he's willing, I don't know if he's comfortable and willing to give it in this type of a setting or not. It's a little bit more challenging to do it that way, but I will ask him the question.
Okay. All right, that concludes our old business. So let's quickly, we'll go around the horn and see if there's any other commissioner comments. And I'm going to start from the bottom right this time and start with Casper. Any other comments for the night?
I do not.
All right. Brett, since you're still online, we'll ask you, even though you're not a commissioner. Okay, Brett's muted.
Brett.
Sergeant Ronning, anything else?
No, nothing new.
All right, Bob?
Yeah, one comment. I said I was busy, and that's because I'm now a member of the Planning Commission as well. So I wanted to pass that on to everybody.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Cover up the S on your forehead very well. All right, Leslie?
No comments. Thank you.
Thanks. Neil?
Nope, nothing.
Karin?
Nope.
Russ, thank you for joining us tonight. Any comments?
The only thing I want to say is I want to thank everybody for taking the time to participate on the Traffic Safety Committee. It's a very important component of the community, and I know it's time consuming, but it is greatly appreciated, not only by the city staff, but by the citizens in town. So thank you for participating on this committee.
Thank you. Mark?
I'm good. Thank you.
Roger?
At some point, I'd like to see a report or hear something about what's going on in Portland when they've recently reduced the speed limit in neighborhoods to 20 miles an hour, and to see what the impact has been on that, whether it's a hopefully it's a positive impact, but I'd like to see if there is any kind of reports from City of Portland or other cities that are doing that, and if it's something that we might take a look at considering. Thank you.
I think I've actually seen a report, so I'll see if I can dig one of those up and share it with everybody. And I have nothing else to add. So thank you all for tonight, and very successful hearing to be continued. But with that, our next meeting is scheduled for October 12th. And unless there's anything else for the night, I think we will take us up. Karin, go ahead.
Really quick, I forgot. Does everybody get the Oregon Impact? It's an electronic newsletter that comes out from the state, and it's all about traffic safety issues. I get it, and I know I was forwarding it on for a while, but I don't want to forward it on to people if they already get it, or they don't care. And then I get mail for Tony from them in paper, also from them, but it's all about traffic safety stuff, whether it's texting and driving, or those kinds of things. So I didn't know if this group was interested in getting that. I can forward it on to you, and then you can actually sign up to get it yourself if you want to. And you can sign up under your Newburgh address, so you're not getting it on your personal site if that's a concern. Thoughts on that?
I assume if I Google Oregon Impact that I'll find them and I'll sign up.
Okay.
Yeah, I will too.
Okay.
So will I.
Awesome.
I know I
Let
get
me know
the-
if you can't find it and I'll dig out the link and get it to you guys.
Okay,
All right, do I need a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Sounds like Leslie seconded.
Yep.
All right, guys.
All right, thank
Moved and
you.
seconded. If you hang up, I'll assume you approve.
All right.
All right, good night, guys.
October 12th.